On behalf of the American Association for Employment Education, I'd like to welcome you to the AAEE-sponsored webinar, This Is Us, IDEA Public Schools. My name is Tim Newbert, and I am the Executive Director of AAEE. Before we begin with our webinar, I'd like to thank some of my colleagues. AAEE Board Member Daphne Donaldson from East Baton Rouge Parish Schools, who directs our Professional Development Program, and Sarah Russell, our Strategic Marketing Manager, for her leadership role in preparing and hosting today's webinar. For those attending live, please note that if you have technical difficulties, you may send a message to any meeting by clicking the button in the upper right-hand corner. Also, during the webinar, all attendees will be muted. However, at any point, you may submit questions via the chat feature. Our presenters will allow time for questions toward the end of the presentation, so throughout the webinar, please submit your questions and comments via the chat box, and she'll try her best to respond to all questions during the event. If you are not currently a member of AAEE, you can find more information on our website at aaee.org. We are an association that brings together the college and university professionals who prepare future educators with the employers who hire them. Related to that mission, we offer publications and events such as the Job Search Handbook for Educators, an annual Teacher Supply and Demand Report, a calendar of education-specific job fairs held around the country, an annual conference and career fair, which was held in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania last fall and will be held in St. Louis, Missouri in November, and of course, our webinars. Today, we're pleased to have our friend Carly Gilardi, Director of National Recruitment with IDEA Public Schools. In her role, she supports the recruitment and onboarding of teachers in the Founding Teacher Fellowship Program, while coaching and supporting all regional recruiters in their goal to hire over 1,000 IDEA teachers and co-teachers. Prior to joining IDEA, Carly worked as a teacher for St. Bernard Middle School, while also holding the role of English Language Arts Curriculum Lead for St. Bernard Parish. During her time teaching, Carly also worked as a technique seminar instructor with the New Teacher Institute and as a teacher leader advisor with the Louisiana Department of Education. Thank you for sharing information about IDEA Public Schools with us today, Carly. I'll now turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Tim. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I do have a PowerPoint today. All right. Tim, can you see my screen? All right. And Tim, give me the thumbs up. You can see the screen all right? All right, I'm gonna assume that's a yes. All right, so I wanted to get to thank you again, Tim, for the great introduction. Really wanted to take a little bit of time today to share with you really about teaching with IDEA Public Schools. Though we are a large charter network and there are opportunities with us to work outside of the classroom, obviously the highest amount of roles that we fill every year is teaching. So I really wanted to dive into that today with you all. On our agenda, I always want to start out with the why. Why do we do what we do? Why did IDEA Public Schools start? So I really wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about our mission, our history, and some of the results we've had as a district. Secondly, I wanted to talk about teacher impact and experience. What does it look like to be a teacher at IDEA? And lastly, I want to talk about the qualification and the screening process that we use at IDEA, as well as just any tips and tricks that I can give you today. All right, so let's dig into our mission and impact.
Carly, I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Tim. I just want to confirm I can hear you. I apologize.
Oh, you're totally fine. Great. Right. So first, I want to just start with a national statistic. Right now, only 8% of kids growing up in low-income communities are going to graduate college by age 25. If you compare that to kids growing up in high-income communities, 80% of those students are graduating college by age 25. So that statistic is pretty staggering when you think about educational equity and educational access for all students, regardless of income, regardless of background and zip code. So I ground you in that statistic because that's really where IDEA started, and that's why we started building our schools 17 years ago. So IDEA's vision is to ensure that students can reach their potential and that we become our region's largest creator of college graduates. When we go into a new region or when we build our schools, we're only going to be building schools in under-resourced areas where we see there is a need for quality education and for college access. So as I mentioned earlier, we've been around for 17 years. And for the last 11 years, the only years that we've actually had college graduates, we've had 100% college acceptance of all of our IDEA students. So we're really following through on the promises that we make to the IDEA families who choose to send their students to IDEA public schools and making sure that their child has access to college. As I mentioned earlier, every IDEA school is a Title I school, and we are only going, we only build our schools where we really see there is a need. And so as I mentioned, we started 17 years ago, and we actually started in the Rio Grande Valley, which is the very south tip of Texas. Many of us I was not aware of the Rio Grande Valley when I first started on this team, but it's actually our biggest region. And so that's where we started. About 8 years ago, we moved schools into San Antonio and Austin. And next school year, we will actually be opening our first schools in El Paso and our first schools in Baton Rouge. And as you see, Fort Worth will actually be opening in a year and a half, so the 2019-20 school year. So currently, though, that's kind of a future projections, but currently right now we're in 5 regions. We have 61 schools, 4,500 employees, and we serve 36,000 college-bound students. So yes, we have a very rapid growth rate. We are growing incredibly quickly, but that's because there's a huge need for schools like IDEA. We have thousands of students on the wait list to get into IDEA public schools. And so we're going to continue growing as we see that there is a need for allowing quality education for all students. So let's take a little minute and talk about the teacher experience. So there are many roles at IDEA within the classroom. And so our schools are pre-K through 12th grade. So let's start talking about the elementary schools. We call our elementary schools academy at IDEA. So you'll see that there are kind of 2 groups within the academy. The first group is the pre-K through 2nd grade range. And in those grades, we really use a co-teaching model. So every classroom is going to have a teacher as well as a co-teacher to really support making sure that those foundations that are so crucial to students at that age are really being built and that we can continue then to build on them starting in 3rd grade. 3rd through 5th grade teachers, though they do not have the co-teacher model as much, although of course special education does have co-teachers that will push into certain classrooms. Those are our star tested grades, and we actually have content teachers. So unlike some elementary schools where you might be a 4th grade math, ELA, science, history, you're kind of doing it all, you're a generalist. At IDEA, we have content teachers starting in 1st grade. So our students rotate through different periods. And so you are the expert in reading, fifth grade reading, or you might be the expert in 1st grade math. And so that's really what we focus on there. Starting in college prep is what we call our secondary schools, and those will go from 6th through 12th grade. So in that middle school range, 6th through 8th grade, we enroll all of our students in pre-AP courses. We believe that every child at IDEA is an honors student. We don't believe in tracking our students, and some kids are honors and some students are not. If we say 100% of kids can go to college, it's not just about getting to college, it's about getting through college and getting through college successfully. So we know we need to prepare our students for the rigor of college, and that starts very young. So in 6th through 8th grade, you'll see a big emphasis on those pre-AP honors classes that every child is enrolled in. Starting in high school, so 9th through 12th, we actually have an AP for all program. So every IDEA student takes 11 to 13 AP courses before they graduate. This furthers the mission of getting them ready for college. Of course, the rigor of an AP class is going to be greater than a traditional high school class, but it also helps with college credits. So we have a lot of AP scholars who are graduating from IDEA already a year plus into college credit. So we know that that's really important for the students who are going to be going to college. Of course, we also offer electives, which I'll talk about in a moment. But I want to make a note that in every grade, even starting in pre-K, that college mission is a focus. So college field trips are starting in middle school, if not sooner. The mission around and the discussion around college is really, it doesn't just start in 11th grade. It's throughout our entire program. That is our mission. Every child is destined for college. And so that's really starting from early on, the vision that we set with our families as well as our students. So I wanted to stop and just address some frequently asked questions I typically get around this point. We often get asked, how many students per grade level? And it's going to really look pretty traditional. So typically we have about 100 students per grade level, which I guess can look a little smaller compared to maybe a traditional school. But per class, that looks really average. So you're going to see about 25 to 28 students per class. Keep in mind that in those pre-K through second grade, you're going to have two teachers, a teacher and a co-teacher. So we'd actually divide that by 2 if you're thinking about students per teacher in a classroom. We do follow, I know we are a public charter school. However, we do follow a traditional school calendar, which means you're going to have the 2 weeks for Christmas break, the 1 week for spring break, the 1 week for Thanksgiving, that full summer vacation. Although we do have a slightly extended school day starting at 7:45 and ending around 3:45. We do contribute in Texas, we do contribute to Texas teacher retirement. As well, in Louisiana, we actually pay into a 403B for our Louisiana teachers. But I often find that as a question, well, if you're a charter school, what does that mean? We do actually pay into Texas teacher retirement. And similarly, our students are taking the same Texas state standards or same Louisiana state standards. So we are doing our state testing and making sure that we're compliant with all state regulations in terms of student achievement and testing. Another question we often get is about our special education. Do we have special education program? Do we have special education students? Yes, in fact, we have a very robust special education program. And so it is a blind lottery actually to get into IDEA. We do not cherry pick students, the best and brightest students. In fact, when we say we're a public charter, that means every child can go to IDEA. And many students come to us with special needs or are behind needing additional interventions because they might be behind grade level. So we do have to offer a lot of interventions, a lot of ESL support. Though we're a monolingual school district, we certainly serve a large ESL population. So we've had to build in a lot of interventions, as well as a lot of different special accommodations for our students. In terms of beyond academics, certainly that is our focus. If we're saying every kid's going to college, we got to make sure that their grades are in line and that we can get them into the best colleges. So you're going to see a lot of college field trips starting traditionally in 6th grade, but I know there are some 2nd graders who are going to college field trips throughout the IDEA team and family. But we also do have extracurriculars and clubs and sports. Some of our sports teams actually compete on a national level. And as a teacher, as an administrator, you actually have a lot of flexibility to start clubs on your team, to be a coach, to create something really new that's really unique to your school. And that's something I really love about IDEA is that though we're a part of a big district and we get a lot of district resources, there is a lot of flexibility within your own campus to make it special to your campus. So we have lacrosse teams. We have certain schools that are really big into chess. We have some schools that are STEM focused, certain schools that are more arts focused. So there is a lot of flexibility and differentiation you're going to see amongst our schools, although the same mission, the same vision, the same rigorous curriculum will be used throughout. Also want to point out we have a big focus on healthy kids. So we have a big healthy kids initiative, which means making sure that our students, though we're giving them this great academic curriculum, making sure that their brain is also being fed, not just with facts, but with really healthy food from our cafeteria, offering free breakfast to every child, as well as free lunch. And then, most of our schools have farms. And so just a really big initiative on making sure our kids are physically active. We do offer PE. It's mandatory for every child to take, and just making sure that they're not just getting nourishment in their, as far as academics, but also in their bodies. So what does a typical day at IDEA look like? So on the left side, you'll see kind of a typical academy schedule. On the right side, you will see a typical college prep schedule. Give you just a quick moment to look through those. Although you might see it looks pretty much what you might expect, just the different periods of instructional time and the rotations that students traditionally take. One thing to note is that even though the school day doesn't start till 7:45 with morning meeting, the students always huddle. Before the morning meeting, we even have teacher meetings so that there's a quick huddle with your team. We really do require teachers to be there at 7 o'clock because our students do arrive for that free breakfast. And it's really important that we have our teachers there and ready to serve our students at 7 o'clock. And though typically instructional time is going to end around 3:45, a little later for college prep, it's really important that our teachers typically are going to stay until about 5:15, because there's dismissal, there's duties, and then there's also meetings. So at IDEA, you're a part of a grade level team. You're also a part of a content team, and those meetings happen after school. And we really believe that it's important to make sure that you're supported and that you have a team that you can troubleshoot with, you can get direction from. At IDEA, you are not on an island. You get a lot of support and a lot of coaching, and a lot of that's going to come from your team. Another great benefit of working at IDEA is that we do pay among the highest teaching salaries in our regions. So I'll just give you a minute to look at that. And those are starting salaries. Of course, on top of the starting salaries, based on your years of teaching experience, those salaries increase. There are also stipends for taking on different extracurriculars. If you teach an AP class, if you teach special education. So definitely there's a lot of stipends and bonuses on top of those salaries. But I always like to plug that we do pay some of the higher teaching salaries in each of our regions. And again, those numbers are for teachers with 0 years of experience. Another great perk of working or teaching at IDEA is our teacher career pathway. So we firmly believe that teachers should be able to stay in the classroom and retire in the classroom if that is their passion, and that they should feel that they are rewarded and compensated enough to make that possible for them. So every year our teachers get placed on the teacher career pathway. If you look at the graphic in the upper left-hand corner, that's kind of a pie chart. You'll see that those are kind of the percentages that make up your teacher career pathway score. You end up getting placed 1 through 5. And so it's based on student achievement, what your students are saying, your families are saying, as well as what your observations and your ratings are in your observations, your weekly coaching sessions, your weekly observations. And through your placement on the teacher career pathway, you get additional bonuses at the end of the year. So actually this master IDEA teacher, that would be a level 5 teacher, you can actually earn an additional $10,000 a year by being a master IDEA teacher. But we know it's not all about money. Most of us did not go into this profession for the money. So on top of, based on your teacher career pathway placement, you also get an additional classroom budget for projects, for field trips, for whatever you're wanting to do in your classroom. You get professional development differentiation. So, if you're a level 4 or 5 teacher, you might not need to go to the same professional development as a level 1 or 2 teacher needs to go to. So we want to make sure that we're meeting you where you're at and growing you from where you are currently. And of course, recognition. We know that's a big piece. We want to make sure that we're shouting out. So we have a lot of fancy luncheons that we celebrate our level 4 and 5 teachers, and just making sure, as well as advisory councils, we want to hear your voice at IDEA. We want to make changes, whether that's on a school level or a district-wide level. So there's a lot of great perks with the teacher career pathway. And then for those teachers who are interested in maybe it's not, staying as a teacher for the long run. You have leadership ambitions. We have a lot of great opportunities to build a leadership within a campus. So there is a co-teacher role, as I mentioned earlier. Typically, co-teachers are placed in pre-K or second grade. Of course, there's PE co-teachers and special education co-teachers as well. And then there's the teacher level. Of course, there's lead team. So each lead team is going to have a grade level lead as well as a content lead. But then on top of that, with campus leadership, you're going to see each school has an assistant principal of instruction, as well as an assistant principal of operations, and those, as well as an academic counselor and college counselors. So those, you'll actually see we have quite a few leaders on every campus. I think part of that is to support our teachers and make sure that they're getting the support, whether that's through operations or the coaching they need to grow. as well as just making sure that we have really a lot of consistency from one classroom to the other, making sure our students have really firm knowledge of the expectations, so that way we can really get the knowledge, impart the knowledge that we need to our students. Then we have a principal in residence program. So after, a lot of our assistant principals, the next step is this principal in residence program. It's a 2-year program where you'll serve under a principal, learning everything there is to know about being a principal, and then eventually founding your own IDEA school. And so something I always like to note is that we are big on promotions at IDEA. We're going to look first at our people when we're making our internal promotions. So most of our principals and residents actually have already been with IDEA. So if you do know that you have a 5-10 year plan to move up into leadership, IDEA is a great place to make that happen. Because we're growing so quickly, we have a high need to move teachers into leaders. And we want to make, if that's what your ambition is, we want to make you, put you on the track. So offer you programming that's going to allow that to happen. So definitely if leadership is something you're interested in, IDEA is certainly a place where we can make that happen. And it's happening every year. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the qualifications and application process. And I know I'm doing a lot of talking at you, so I certainly will stop for questions at the end. All right, so what are we looking for? I've gotten to give you a little bit about the teacher experience, our mission, but what do we look for in a teacher? So certainly all of our teachers need to have a bachelor's degree, though that's not a requirement for co-teachers. And one of the really unique things about being a charter school in Texas and Louisiana is that we actually do not require teacher certification. So except in special education, our teachers do not necessarily need to have a certification, which makes us a little unique amongst all of the different schools out there. So we firmly, though, I will say about 50% of our teachers are certified. It is not a requirement that we have to meet. It can make you more competitive in the application process, but we really are looking for that mission fit. We want to see that you're passionate about making sure that all students go to college, that you're willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen. And we want to see that you have a proven record of results, that you've met goals in the past, and that you're really motivated by achieving high and lofty and ambitious goals. So for us, if we look at that mission fit piece and that record of results piece, a certification, a piece of paper can tell us a little bit, but it cannot tell us as much as those two things. So those are really some of the big things that we look for in our teachers. So base requirement, we really are looking for that bachelor's degree. We prefer all of our teachers to have a 3.0 or above. It's not a requirement, it's just preferred. But really then we're going to dig in on your competencies and see, are you a good mission fit? Do you have a proven record of results? And are you looking to grow? Are you looking and open for feedback? Because at IDEA, as I've mentioned, teachers are coached weekly, given a lot of support and feedback, and you have to have the right mindset for that. So what does the application process look like? So there is an online application. You can actually find all of our applications on ideapublicschools.org/careers. After you complete the online application, which has about 3 open-ended questions, similar to what you might expect. Why do you want to work at IDEA? What's a goal that you've hit in the past? After that, you actually get passed on to a video interview. I know this makes a lot of people nervous, but it's pretty great technology where we ask you 5 questions and you get to record yourself answering those questions. You do get to re-record, so you don't have to be perfect the first time. However, this allows us to really get a sense of you and a sense of what you bring to the table on top of what we saw in your written application. After the video interview, if you pass that stage, you're invited to a final in-person interview on a specific campus. So that's really at the point where you learn, the applications typically are kind of pooled. So you might apply for a 3rd through 5th grade math role in San Antonio. But as you go, in that application, you preference your top school choices. And then when you get to the final in-person interview, you know what school you're interviewing for. And in that interview, you're going to have a sample teach. So we'll give you a lesson ahead of time that you'll do about a 15-minute sample teach. Sometimes it is in front of students, but we'll always prepare you for that. As well as a Q&A. And there's also additionally this year a content assessment. So we want to make sure, especially when we're thinking about those AP level classes, that you have the content knowledge to be teaching those higher level courses. So there's a quick content assessment that we give all the teacher candidates as well. After that step, there is an offer notification. So as Tim mentioned earlier, throughout all of our many regions, we are hiring over 1,000 instructional roles this school year. So for the 18-19 school years, we have a lot of vacancies. And part of that is because of how quickly we're growing. We're opening 18 new schools next year, as well as a lot of our schools grow a grade every year. So when we first opened an elementary school, we only opened kinder, first, and second. When we opened a secondary school, we only opened sixth grade. After that first year, of course, those schools grow a grade until they're fully pre-K through 12th grade. However, so because of the nature of our model and because of the nature of our growth, we certainly have a lot of vacancies. So I always say, don't delay on submitting your application. Unlike you might see in some other school districts that maybe wait till late spring, summer to hire, we have already started hiring. We really start in January, and we really keep it up throughout, I would say April, May, but really by early May, you're going to see we're about 75 to 80% hired. So don't wait. Definitely, if you're interested, submit your application today. Quick plug for those of you watching before the March 19th date. We do have application priority deadlines. So our next one will be March 19th. You can see in the blue highlighted column. And really this just allows your application to be prioritized and screened quicker. So if you do apply before March 19th, you actually get to follow this follow the column down. So then you can expect to hear back about a video interview by March 30th. You get to know if you're invited to a final interview by April 23rd. So we definitely recommend trying to get your application in by March 19th. If you were to apply by, let's say, March 20th, unfortunately, you may not hear about a final interview until May 28th. So just keep in mind that the way you read those columns, you read them vertically, and that kind of shows where you should expect to hear back from. All right, so that was a lot of talking and a lot of information. Are there any questions anyone has around teaching opportunities? I know that was really teacher focused, but it is our primary hiring pool. But of course, I would take questions on any other types of opportunities.
Carly, this is Tim. So I've got some questions submitted. So the first question is, are IDEA facilities new or existing school buildings?
Oh, that's a great question. So we do have 61 schools, and generally in some of our newer regions, we are building schools, and typically, like kind of starting from scratch and constructing buildings on new land. But that's not always the model. Actually, in Austin, we have a really unique school called IDEA Runberg, and it was actually an old bowling alley that was closed down. So we came in, we remodeled it, we refurbished it, and so that is actually now our school. So typically, we're going to build new schools in some of our newer regions, but you will see every once in a while we take over old buildings, and so it really just can depend. Great question.
Could you please review what kind of support you provide for new teachers?
Oh, great. Yes. And I realize I wish I had spent a little more time. So for new teachers, first off, I want to focus on Summer Institute. So every new to IDEA teacher, so even if you have some teaching experience, but if you're new to IDEA, we realize there's a lot that you need to learn. So every new to IDEA teacher is going to spend 3 to 4 weeks over summer just in professional development and team building sessions to really build up their knowledge of just really the mission, the vision of IDEA, but also the curriculum we use, and then the systems that your school is going to use in particular. So a lot of development you're going to see on the front end. As well, every IDEA teacher is assigned a manager. And so that manager's role throughout the school year is to have weekly check-ins with especially our new to IDEA teachers. So every week you can expect to be formally observed. And by formal observation, I mean this is a 30 to 45 minute observation. And then you're also going to get feedback based on that observation. So that's at least the minimum, but certainly some of our teachers are, experience really frequent pop-ins. We have an open door policy at IDEA. And so you're going to have people, coming in, helping you out, supporting you, giving you quick feedback throughout really every day. So a lot of coaching though in those formal observations and feedback, as well as feedback on lesson plans. And so that's definitely something every teacher can expect, but we especially spend a lot of time with those new to idea teachers, as well as weekly meetings with your grade level team and your content teams, to just make sure that you're understanding what curriculum needs to be, different testing that needs to be met, and standards that need to be hit every week. So a lot of resources are given to our teachers. And I also just want to point out as well that we do have professional development days throughout the year where no students come, and it's really just a full day of development. So I would say, how have we gotten 100% of students? I shared with you earlier to college. It's not, we don't cherry pick students. We're not taking, our students look like any other student at any other school. I really, truly believe we have the best teachers at IDEA who are super dedicated and hardworking. But also they're really willing to grow and receive a lot of feedback. So I think our students are all getting to college because we have the best teachers who are getting world-class development.
Great, thank you. Will you consider applicants with master's degrees, and if so, do you compensate them differently?
Yes, so certainly we accept applicants with master's degree, and there is a stipend for master's degree in the pay scale.
Okay. The last question I have currently submitted is, does IDEA have any plans to expand beyond Texas and Louisiana?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that I would also be interested in knowing the full. So I can tell you what we have on the future plan. So Fort Worth is 2019-20. Houston will be 2020, 2021. So that's still Texas based, but I will not say it's out of the realm of possibility. I've heard there's been a lot of trips happening in Florida. So I think Florida is one that we're kind of thinking about. But yeah, I do believe in the future we will be outside of Texas and Louisiana. Louisiana this year, we're opening schools next year, I should say. Our first school is in Baton Rouge. So we've learned a lot about just the different challenges of opening schools in new states. So we're certainly excited about it and expanding. But I would say in the next 3 years, we'll probably be more Texas, Louisiana at this point. But guys, come on, Texas is a great place to live. High teaching salaries. It's warm here. You don't pay state income taxes. I can't promote it enough.
Well, those are all the questions that I had to pass along. So, Carly, thank you again for taking the time today to tell us more about IDEA Public Schools.
Of course. And just a quick last slide. Here, if you have any questions, these are all of our regional recruiters. You'll see my information's the one furthest on the left. I'm the national recruiter, but each of our regions has recruiters as well. Here's their emails and phone numbers. But of course, I highly recommend just go online, ideapublicschools.org/careers. You might not be interested in teaching, but we have a whole robust marketing, an ops team, communications, finance. We're a huge network. So there's a lot of need for people, even outside of teaching. So I highly recommend visiting our website and learning a little bit more. And please don't ever hesitate to reach out.
Excellent. Thanks again, Carly. Appreciate your time today.
Of course. Thanks so much, Tim. And thank you everyone else for letting me take a little bit of your time. And again, I really enjoyed being able to share more about IDEA with you.
Excellent.